How do you bring back something that's been gone for 12,000 years? A creature once feared by mammoths and hunted by early humans has gone without a trace. Now imagine three snow-white pups born in a lab, bearing the DNA of an ancient predator. Sounds like sci-fi? It's not. Behind this real-life resurrection is a startup called Colossal Biosciences, and what they've done might just change nature forever. This is the story of how scientists may have just reversed extinction. The Ice Age was coming to an end, and with it, a brutal reshuffling of life on Earth. The ground shook under the weight of giants, woolly mammoths, towering short-faced bears, saber-toothed cats with fangs like daggers. But even among these titans, one predator stood out, the dire wolf. Heavier, stockier, and more powerful than the gray wolves we know today, the dire wolf was the apex hunter of its age. It roamed from what is now Alaska down to Bolivia, hunting in coordinated packs and taking down prey that would terrify modern carnivores. Its bite could crush bone, its pack could shred bison to pieces. For thousands of years, it ruled the Ice Age wilderness. And then, silence. Roughly 12,000 years ago, the dire wolf disappeared along with nearly 70% of Earth's large mammal. It was a mass extinction event now known as the Quaternary extinction, and to this day, scientists still argue about what caused it. Some blame the rapidly shifting climate as ice sheets melted and habitats vanished. Others point fingers at a new and deadly predator, humans, armed with fire, tools, and teamwork. Maybe it was a deadly cocktail, warming temperatures, vanishing prey, new diseases, and a two-legged rival that could think ahead. Whatever the reason, the result was catastrophic. And here is the saber-toothed cat, that too, gone. The giant ground sloth, extinct. The mammoth, doomed. And the dire wolf king of its realm for nearly 1,000,000 years was one of the last to fall. What's left now are bones, fossilized jaws, and skulls pulled from the black tar of La Brea. Teeth are still sharp. Skeletons are still massive, as if waiting to be reassembled. But no one expected those bones to ever breathe again, until now. 2021 to 2025, Austin, Texas. Fast forward to the 21st century. In the heart of Texas, where tech startups and wild ideas often go hand in hand, one company was about to make headlines for something no one had done before. Not build the next iPhone, but build the next mammoth. The Colossal Biosciences, a biotech startup founded in 2021 with a mission that sounded more like the pitch for a sci-fi blockbuster. We're bringing back extinct species. At the center of this resurrection dream were two unlikely partners. First, Ben Lamb, a serial tech entrepreneur, known for founding AI companies and never thinking small. The kind of guy who doesn't ask, can we? But why haven't we already? Second, George Church, a Harvard geneticist and one of the pioneers of CRISPR, the gene editing tool that can literally rewrite DNA like lines of computer code. If Lamb was the hype machine, Church was the mad scientist with decades of experience and a brain wired for biological moonshots. Their initial target was the woolly mammoth. And you know why? Because frozen remains still held intact DNA, and reviving them could, according to Colossal, help restore Arctic ecosystems. The public reaction was having a mix of awe, curiosity, and memes about Ice Age 5. Critics called it Jurassic Park in a lab coat. Ethicists raised eyebrows. Ecologists rolled their eyes. Why spend millions on mammoths when living animals are going extinct right now? They asked. But Colossal wasn't just pitching nostalgia. They had money. Real money. Millions in venture capital, backing from Silicon Valley elites, and enough scientific firepower to get the world's attention. Then, they dropped a twist. The dire wolf was next. Unlike the mammoth, the dire wolf's DNA was more degraded. Cloning wasn't possible, but Colossal believed they could do something even more ambitious. Build a genetic hybrid using modern wolves and the scattered DNA fragments of the extinct predator. At first, people laughed. Then, they blinked. Then came the lab footage. Cells growing, embryos developing, hearts beating. Suddenly, this wasn't a joke anymore. Colossal wasn't just trying to play God, they were rewriting nature's rules. And they were just getting started. La Brea tar pits, California, and Yukon permafrost. To bring back a ghost, you first need a trace of it. Colossal's team of scientists set out on a high-stakes genetic scavenger hunt, starting with the only places on Earth still holding pieces of the dire wolf, the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles, and the frozen soils of the Yukon. At La Brea, dire wolves had died by the hundreds, lured into bubbling black tar while chasing trapped prey. Their bones, perfectly preserved in asphalt, gave us the most complete fossil record of the species anywhere on Earth. Skulls, jaws, paws, entire packs caught in mid-hunt. But for all the bones, there was almost no viable DNA. Tar preserves structure, not cells. So scientists turned north to the permafrost, hoping cold would succeed where tar failed. It did barely. They found ancient fragments of DNA, like scattered lines from a recipe written 12,000 years ago, damaged and incomplete, but enough to start decoding the genetic blueprint. And that's when they hit the twist. Dire wolves aren't wolves at all. For over a century, everyone assumed dire wolves were just bulked up versions of modern gray wolves. But in 2021, a genetic study revealed the truth that they belong to an entirely different genus, more like a distant cousin than a sibling. Their line split from wolves millions of years ago. That means cloning was off the table. You can't just take a modern wolf and swap in a few dire wolf genes. It's like trying to bake a cake from a 10,000-year-old recipe with half the ingredients missing and no idea what fermented mammoth milk even is. So scientists pivoted. Instead of copying the dire wolf, they'd recreate its traits: size, jaw strength, cold resistance, and pack behavior, all through gene editing. Think of it like digital restoration. You're not rebuilding the original, but crafting a functional remake with modern tools. This wasn't a resurrection, it was a reinvention. And with CRISPR in hand, Colossal set out to stitch together a living organism that looked, hunted, and thrived like the dire wolf, one gene at a time. The ancient beast might be gone, but its shadow was beginning to take shape. Texas and Boston labs, 2022 to 2024. In brightly lit labs across Texas and Boston, the air buzzed with a nervous kind of hope. The kind that comes when you're doing something no one's ever done before. The mission was to rebuild the dire wolf from scratch, but not by cloning. That door had already been slammed shut. Instead, the scientists turned to their most powerful tool, CRISPR. So, what is CRISPR? Imagine you've got an ancient recipe, the kind passed down on brittle parchment, smudged with ink and time. But some of the instructions are missing, and others are written in a language no one speaks anymore. CRISPR is your molecular scissors cutting, pasting, and rewriting the recipe until it says exactly what you want. Gene by gene, scientists began editing the embryos of gray wolves, turning back the evolutionary clock just a little. Not to make a perfect dire wolf copy, but something close enough. The edits were precise, targeted, and bold. Each embryo would carry up to 20 gene modifications, a delicate balance. Edit too little, and it's just a slightly funky gray wolf. Edit too much, and the embryo doesn't survive. And many didn't. The first batch failed entirely. Cells stopped dividing. Others developed abnormally hearts that didn't beat, lungs that never formed. Weeks of silence followed. Then came a flicker. One embryo, nicknamed Romulus, showed signs of stable growth. Soon after, Remus, and then a female called Khaleesi. Scientists watched, breath held, as the 3 embryos grew inside artificial womb systems and surrogate canines. Each day was a gamble on science, on survival, on something more ancient than either. And then, one morning, a sound that hadn't been heard in over 12,000 years. A heartbeat. Steady, strong, impossible. Romulus had made it. For the first time in millennia, the world wasn't just talking about extinct species, it was listening to one come back to life. Texas Ranch Facility and Enclosed Wilderness Zone, 2024 to 2025. Romulus was the first to breathe, then Remus, then Khaleesi. All 3 were born within 72 hours of each other, under strict observation in a high-security lab just outside Austin. They were tiny, trembling, and technically wolves. But from day one, there was something off, something ancient. Their heads were broader, paws larger, and eyes darker than any modern pup. It was like staring into a window from another era. The scientists didn't know what to expect. Would they walk, hunt, bond like wolves, or behave like something else entirely? Within weeks, instincts began to surface. Romulus asserted dominance early on, snatching food, nudging the others aside. Remus followed closely, more cautious but clever. Khaleesi, the smallest, wasn't submissive, just strategic. She flanked. She waited. When the boys fought, she took what she needed and slipped away. It wasn't long before the lab notes started calling them the pack. Researchers studied their every move, their gait, their growls, how they responded to scents. One note read, Romulus shows signs of pack leadership. Behavior mimics Canis dirus social structures hypothesized from fossil patterns, which was a polite way of saying this wasn't just a wolf with upgrades. This was something new, or old, or both. The public found out soon after. When Colossal released photos of the pups, the internet exploded. Some hailed it as the future of conservation. Others saw monsters in the making. Frankendogs. One headline read, Dire wolves are back, did we learn nothing from Jurassic Park? Read another. But the backlash only amplified the spotlight. Funding poured in. Documentary crews camped outside the research site. And in the middle of it all, the pups kept growing. By month 6, they were no longer pups. At a sprawling fenced wilderness zone, an 800-acre slice of scrubland in West Texas, the scientists opened the gate. Cameras rolled. Guards stood by. Romulus stepped out first, then Remus. Khaleesi lingered for a moment, then darted forward, grass beneath their feet, wind in their fur. For the first time in over 12,000 years, the silhouette of the dire wolf returned to the wild. And as they roamed, as howls echoed into the desert air, a new question emerged. If extinction is no longer permanent, is anything? The line between resurrection and invention had blurred. What came next wasn't just about dire wolves. It was about everything else we've lost and whether we should bring any of it back. Post-birth observations in labs and sanctuaries. They walked like wolves. They hunted like wolves. But they weren't wolves, not exactly. And they weren't dire wolves either. The scientific term for Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi, functional hybrids. Which, let's be honest, sounds like a polite way of saying, we stitched this together and hoped for the best. In private, the debate was clinical. In public, it was chaos. Were these animals really back from extinction, or had scientists just created something new and slapped an old name on it? Paleontologists argued they were too genetically different to be true dire wolves. Biologists pointed to their behavior, pack hunting, territorial marking, dominance rituals, and said, close enough. But close enough for what? One ethicist put it bluntly in a PBS interview. This isn't resurrection. This is recreation. We're not bringing back what was, we're inventing something new. The question isn't just, can we play God? It's should we? And that question lingered, because deep down, even the scientists knew this wasn't a rewind, it was a remix. A genetically engineered echo of a species long gone. Romulus might growl like a dire wolf, but he was born in a lab. Khaleesi might stalk like a predator, but her DNA had never known an ice age. So are they really dire wolves? Depends on who you ask. Some see them as miracles, others as man-made mistakes with paws. But everyone agrees on one thing is that extinction just got a loophole. Global reaction. 2025. The footage of Romulus sprinting across the Texas wilderness went viral in under an hour. News anchors called it the birth of a new scientific era. Social media crowned him the real ghost, a nod to the dire wolf from Game of Thrones. But while the world gawked, the experts split down the middle. Conservationists were torn. Some called it a breakthrough. We're finally undoing the damage we caused, said one ecologist. If extinction is man-made, maybe resurrection should be too. To them, Romulus wasn't a stunt. He was a prototype, proof that we could heal what had been lost. But others weren't buying it. This is flashy science for headlines, argued a wildlife conservation group. Meanwhile, entire species are vanishing every year because we're bulldozing rainforests and poisoning oceans. Where's the funding for that? And they had a point. While Colossal Biosciences celebrated the successful birth of 3 genetically edited predators, thousands of real animals, rhinos, frogs, and bees were being pushed to the brink, with no press, no billion-dollar startups, no second chances. Still, Colossal doubled down. They announced upcoming projects: woolly mammoths for the Arctic tundra, thylacines for Australia, even rumblings about de-extincting the dodo. Critics called it a science fiction spectacle. Supporters, visionary restoration. As for Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi, they remained in their carefully monitored wilderness zone, living, eating, and howling like they were meant to. Or at least, like something meant to. And while the cameras eventually packed up, the question stayed behind. What happens when we become the authors of evolution? What happens when extinction is no longer final? Because in the end, this isn't just about wolves, or science, or even saving the planet. It's about a choice. A simple, terrifying question that echoes louder than any howl. Just because we can bring them back, should we? So yeah, the dire wolf is kind of back. Not because nature brought it, but because some really smart people in labs decided, hey, let's try something wild. And boom, after a lot of trial and error, we got fluffy little pups that look like they time traveled from the Ice Age. It's like science hit the undo button on extinction, but now we've got to ask out what's next. A woolly mammoth with Wi-Fi? A saber-toothed cat as your next-door neighbor? We've proved we can bring things back. But should we? Because fixing the past sounds cool, until your science project grows fangs. So next time you hear a strange howl at night, don't panic. It's probably just Romulus or science getting a little too confident.